Good day. Welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com, produced by Sharc Creative and made possible by Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities right through the spring of 2021. Lipolis Electric, don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis. Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard. And White Plains Hospital, many thanks to our heroes at White Plains for all they've done throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Here on the Cup of Joe political show, we are joined by Westchester County Executive George Latimer. George Latimer, we thank you for coming back and joining us here again on Westchester Talk Radio. We know it's been a pretty difficult time, obviously, over the past year. And as we seem to move out of the pandemic step by step, other things seem to be getting in the way. We'll get into that. But first of all, do we seem to be rounding the corner on the pandemic, on the COVID crisis?
Well, John, we certainly have seen a drop in the last 6 weeks in our level of infections and a significant rise in the amount of people vaccinated. But and we've also seen a diminution in the infection a year ago when we had the spike that started in March and got to its peak in April. It started to diminish and then it came back up again in the fall. So we have to make sure we get through the whole cycle to know that we're really in the clear. But as it stands now, for the last 6 weeks, we've had a drop that took us from 11,500 active cases to 5,500 active cases. That's more than a 50% drop. And an active case for the number of people that have tested positive in the last 2 weeks that have not cleared the virus in their system. It takes 2 weeks to defeat the virus in your system with your normal antibodies. If your normal antibodies can't do that for one reason or another, that's when you get sick, potentially hospitalized, and then, of course, the worst possible result if it costs you your life. So that the good news is we're down 6,000 active cases in the last 6 weeks. The further good news is that in hospitalizations, we've got about 200, and I think exactly 264 people hospitalized from 2 days ago. That number was 580. 5 weeks ago. So we've dropped more than half in that regard. And the total number of infections is the breadth of the impact of the pandemic. The hospitalization is the depth of how sick people are. And so while the number of sick people is still a percentage of the total people that are infected, the fact that the hospitalization number is going down, that's good news. Mm-hmm. Now, on the fatality side, we've lost over 2,100 people, approaching 2,150. And every death is a tragedy. You can't turn it into a statistic and minimize it. But I would say that in the past week, we had less than 30 deaths, which is better than the prior week in which we had 45 deaths. And we're seeing the amount of deaths drop. And obviously, at some point, we want to get down to zero. And we hope that as the infection drops and the amount of vaccinations, people that can't get the disease because they've been vaccinated, rises, then you have a chance of getting to that 0 point. And then how long it stays that way is, medical science is going to have to tell us that. We're getting vaccinated now. I've had my first shot. I'm waiting for my second shot in a couple of weeks. We take those vaccines believing that we won't get the disease, and therefore we start to lift the pressure. But things are getting better, and we're happy about that. So that plus the weather getting warmer, more events outdoors rather than indoors should all be good.
The reason why these numbers have gone down so dramatically, is it due to the vaccine?
Well, I think the vaccine is a factor. I also think that, the people, at least in this area of the country, have been as diligent as anywhere about wearing masks, social distancing, hand sanitizing, avoiding large crowds. And, I can just tell you from my own standpoint, and I am a senior citizen, every day during the pandemic, I have gotten up and shaved and showered and put on a suit and tie because my job really requires me to be on the job every day. That's what I signed on for when I became county executive. But like anybody else, I'm concerned. I'm overweight. That's a concern. And so my sense is now that I'm in the process of completing vaccination, I believe that is going to help us, along with those procedures, avoid infection. Now, by the time we get to the summertime, you'll start to see, I think, more activity that you didn't see last summer. You'll see summer concerts in the parks. They'll be socially distanced, but they won't be canceled. They will happen. I think you start to see some level of spectators at high school and college sports. I can't speak for the pros. That's a different set of decisions. But at the high school and college level, I think you'll see more activity, less willingness to shut everything down. And from a county recreational standpoint, we're opening the golf courses this weekend. We'll talk about Playland in a minute. So it's all steps in the right direction. But I have to say that, when I see states like Texas or Mississippi opening up widely everything, the pandemic is over. My observation is that's foolish. The pandemic is not over. I understand the political philosophy in those states. They don't like wearing a mask. They don't like what they consider to be liberal behaviors to fight the pandemic. But I think you're letting your ideology get in the way of practicality. So in those states, they've moved to the extreme of opening everything up. I think we're being pragmatic.
Mm-hmm. Now, with the vaccine, are you happy with the rollout and distribution across Westchester, or can we do better?
Well, we can always do better. I mean, it'd be foolish to say everything has been done perfectly. Right now, the numbers is that 24% of Westchester residents have had at least their first dose of the vaccine. So the situation that I'm in, had my first dose, waiting for my second dose. Almost a quarter of Westchester County is in that situation.
And that's a pretty good number.
That is a very good number. It's better than most other counties.
Yeah.
And then if you look at those that have completed their vaccinations, meaning they've had both doses or they had one dose of Johnson & Johnson, which is a completed administration of the vaccine, that's 13.5%, almost 14% of the population. So that's all very good news. Now, right now, the vaccine has not been open to 100% of the people. If you're under the age of 65 and you're reasonably healthy and you're not in one of these job areas that have been considered essential, you're not eligible for the vaccine yet. So the number of people that are eligible is a subset of the whole. And of that subset, we still have a quarter of all people vaccinated. So I think we're doing pretty well. It was bumpy at the outset, and it's frustrating for people because it's not an easy process where you call, you reserve it, you go in, because we never had enough vaccines to satisfy the immediate demand. So there was always this sort of waiting, call around, find out where you can go. Some people went into the city. I hear a few stories of people that went to far upstate New York to get vaccinated. Mm-hmm. But right now we have two mega centers going in Westchester County, one at the county center, one at the Yonkers Armory. We have two county clinics that handle a large number of vaccinations, not as much as the mega centers, but a significant amount at the community college and in the downtown White Plains Clinic. You have pharmacies that are doing this. We have a variety of pop-ups. We're now doing some of those as a county, and we're getting ready to administer vaccines to the people who are homebound. So I think we're making good progress. And, day by day, President said the other night, May 1st, he hopes everybody will be eligible for a shot, and he wants to get everybody vaccinated shortly thereafter. And, I'm all in on that goal. Whether we make the goal or not, that's the goal we're striving for. And we want to get this thing behind us. And if we get the right kind of stimulus from what the feds have done, and we get the right amount of vaccination, then we're going to make a quantum leap forward as a society.
You talk about people going near and far to get that vaccine. I have a good friend from high school who lives in Poughkeepsie, and in a few days, he and his wife will drive 182 miles to Utica to go get that vaccine, and they'll have to go back a second time, too. Shows people do what they have to do. About opening up the vaccine to a wider group of people being eligible to get it. Some say we can't do this yet, that we're having enough trouble getting those who already should be vaccinated. Many are not getting vaccinated yet, whether it's because they can't get to a place to be vaccinated or make an appointment online. Should we be opening everything far and wide as soon as possible, or maybe back up a bit and make sure the higher risk categories get these vaccines first?
I think the key is how much vaccine do we have available? And we've been getting a direct allocation of 2,500 doses every week from the state. Keep in mind, the federal government pays the pharmaceutical companies to produce the doses. They are distributed to the 50 states. We never had a national plan against COVID. This has been the 50 states have had 50 different strategies. So Connecticut does one thing, Jersey does something else, and we do a third thing. But if we knew that we could have next week 10,000 doses, I'm confident that we could give out 10,000 doses. But we're allocated 2,500 doses. And so because of that, you can't get to everybody in a targeted goal. You can't get to everybody with an underlying disease. You can't get to everybody who's in advanced age. So no, you shouldn't open it up to everybody. Once you open it up to everybody, the people who are younger, who are computer savvy, who have the physicality to get around to wherever they have to get to, they will immediately get the vaccinations, and they may not be the people that need it the most. So I think when we know that we've got enough vaccine allocated to us to do every man, woman, and child, then we open it up. Because then it doesn't matter if you're young and computer savvy. Then they're just going to say, call, make an appointment, and you can make an appointment. There's plenty of doses. But I hope that day comes very soon. I think that's what the president was talking about last night, that by May 1st, that's what he's targeting for. May 1st, halfway through March now. So we're talking about a month and a half to go. That might come sooner. It depends on the production level at the pharmaceutical companies. As you can appreciate, John, that's way above my pay grade. I'm down here running a little platoon. I'll tell you one other point on this. So we found out a week ago that we were going to get 800 doses of Johnson & Johnson, and we were given the direction to make sure they got into the arms of senior citizens. So we went out immediately and contacted. We know there was very little in northern Westchester along the Route 35 corridor that goes east-west. We called up Matt Slater, the supervisor of Yorktown, Blasio, the supervisor of Cortland, and Rick Morrissey, the supervisor of Somers. We hammered out a deal, a Yorktown location, and we got all 800 done. We got some help from people in the other communities around them, in Bedford and Lewisboro, and we got all of those vaccines out. It's Johnson & Johnson. It's one shot. We don't have to go back for a second time. And what's the moral of the story? Work together. Be part of a team. And I might add, Rick and Matt are in one political party. Linda and I are in the other political party, but we worked together. In fact, we had a pretty good time of it. We had a little bit of back and forth, as you're each, jockeying to figure out how you're going to do this. But at the end of the day, we did what every level of government should do. We just worked together to solve a problem. Now, 800 units, one particular location, that's just a portion of what has to be done. But I'm confident that once we get the word that we're going to have sufficient vaccines for everybody in Westchester County, then we'll be on the phone to every supervisor, every mayor, and we'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And I'll point this out again like I have in the past. Everyone I speak to, Democrat, Republican, any and every political party, have lauded the job you have done throughout this entire pandemic, the way you have brought people together regardless of political party. In the old days when I guess they recorded We Are the World back in the mid-'80s, Quincy Jones told all the superstars who walked in, check your ego at the door. Right. And you've pretty much had everybody check their ego to work for the common good and the common goal to battle and finally, hopefully soon get rid of this COVID pandemic as best as possible. On that note, and vaccines, as we were talking about that, do you think states should have the right, the ability to go get their own vaccines instead of waiting for the feds to tell you, we can give you this today, maybe we can give you this amount next week?
Well, if we let states all negotiate on their own, certainly New York would be a winner because we are a big state and a wealthy state. And we could buy it and have it shipped, and we have those resources. And so does California, Massachusetts, Illinois, and so forth. I don't think we'd be doing right by Rhode Island or North Dakota or other states. Now, I'm not running for national office, so I'm not trying to curry favor in North Dakota. But my sense is that what we missed at the outset was a national strategy just on the whole disease. The national strategy would have begun with a presidential address. We saw one last night. A presidential address a year ago in which the president of that day would come forward and say, like Ronald Reagan would have done, or Jack Kennedy would have done. He would have said, my fellow Americans, we face a crisis. Here's what we're doing about it. The national strategy doesn't mean you don't talk to local people. You plan it, and you include the 50 governors in the planning, and then everything is done nationally. So it's for the federal government to have a role here. And since we've gotten this far down the line in this decentralized situation, then I think we just keep going it. But I've even said this, and I have colleagues who are county executives in neighboring counties. Ed Day and I are good friends, county executive in Rockland County. But you don't want to have a Rockland set of rules, cross the bridge, and then have a Westchester set of rules, and they're different. You want a certain degree of coordination between those things. And you'd like to know that what's happening in Jersey and what's happening in Connecticut is also kind of like what's happening in New York. So to the extent that the horse left the barn a year ago, when you didn't do a national program, we are where we are today. And so I'll accept the fact that you've got 50 different states working through the federal government to get the vaccines. And again, I think it's more a question of quantity. If the quantity of vaccines came in, then the state would have enough to give Ed Day what he needs, give Mark Molinaro what he needs, give George Latimer and Mary Ellen Odell, these are the county executives, we'd all get what we needed, and then it wouldn't really matter who else got what. And I think that's what we're striving for, and hopefully we'll get there.
Can we get students back into school, into the classroom full time before the end of this school year, or is it maybe too late?
No, it's not too late. I think we have to do it. I have publicly said that I think kids should be back in school. I believe that after we went through the holiday season and maybe the first couple of weeks after New Year's, when we had the peak and we started coming down from that spike, that peak, At that point in time, we need to have kids in school. Now, the governor, who controls these decisions in New York State, indicated that the decision was to be made by each school district individually, and the school districts would consult with their parents, the teachers, and they would consult with the county health department. And we said the minute that was the the reminder, we immediately said, look, the county health department will work with any school district that's prepared to bring the kids back in. There's this whole debate over 3-foot, 6-foot distancing with barriers, without barriers. We would work with the district. But then what happens is, parents who are agitated, who want their kids back in school, they don't hear that I support that. They never heard me say it because whatever, the media is what it is and they didn't listen to it, or I didn't say it in every single venue I was in. So they start calling me up. They're getting mad at me. You should step forward. You should. I've done exactly that. You just didn't know it. And in that kind of an environment now, I think that the school superintendents, most of them, are working aggressively to put the kids back at school. Could it have been done sooner? But I know what the county's role has been. The county's role has been, we took this on because this is within our authority, vaccinate every teacher that wants a vaccine. And if you vaccinate the teachers, they're the ones most likely to get COVID because they're older. The kids are more resistant to getting the disease. The seniors, are more likely to get it. And we started going through from the Yonkers district on down. We haven't completed it. There are way more teachers in this county than there are police and fire added up. So what we find ourselves doing is trying to make it possible for schools to open by the way we work with the school administration and sanitization and organizing the rooms if they want it. They don't have to, they don't have to consult with us if they don't want to. And by getting teachers vaccinated. That's our contribution to getting kids back in classroom. Mm-hmm. But John, you and I both went through elementary school and junior high school once upon a time. They call it middle school now. You're younger than I am, so maybe it was middle school when you were there. I can't imagine being a third grader sitting in front of this computer all day long. And the dog comes by and I want to get up and walk around and I'm not paying attention. You get into division, whatever year you get in that fourth grade, I guess, and it takes concentration. And in class, that system forces you to concentrate. When you're doing remote, you're not. And it's just, and then if mom has 3 kids, I'm in 4th grade, one kid's in 1st grade, and another kid's in 7th grade, how does mom keep tabs on us? Right. What do we do? Mom has to work. Mom works and dad works. And under normal circumstances, the 3 of us kids are at school. So there's so many reasons why you're remote because you had to be during the height of the pandemic. But now that we're in a better place, you have to have the kids back. You got to figure it out and get it done.
You were instrumental in getting all the area county executives together. You mentioned a few of them a few minutes ago, Ed Day, Mary Ellen Odell, Mark Molinaro, et cetera, in bringing back and making sure we had this high school winter sports season, high-risk sports, basketball, wrestling, hockey, cheerleading, et cetera. What was the impetus, the rationale behind that?
Well, first of all, the governor had maintained the authority to determine which sports could be played or not played. It's all part of the state executive order authority. And then about, maybe 2 months ago now, it was on a Friday afternoon, he made the decision to devolve that decision down to the county health departments, not the county executives, but the county health departments. And he said, if the local health departments say it's okay, it's okay. And so county executives in this region, we're in the Section 1 Athletic Association. That's Dutchess, Orange, Putnam, Rockland, and us. And we had a phone call, and we all agreed that we were going to go forward with authorizing it. And we made a statement along those lines. And then we had to put together the protocol necessary for what you do in order to do that. So when kids, are prepared to play a particular sport, how is that sport managed in order to avoid spreading the disease? And when do you do what type of sanitization and all those types of things? And you're talking about in high-risk sports that have a lot of contact, hockey, football, basketball, wrestling. You could be on the golf team, John, and never touch anybody, an opponent or a teammate. You could be tennis and across the court and play it safely. Baseball, you have a little contact here and there, but not a lot, But in football, you're lined up right against another guy who's right in your grill. In basketball, if you have defense, I'm covering you every place you go. So clearly, you could have problems and you have to work through those problems. Now, I think I've always been considered a person who's pretty honest and always willing to give credit to other people. You don't always get that in people in public office. let me credit Mark Molinaro, the Dutchess County executive, because when this thing came down, I gave Mark a call, and you got to keep in mind the politics of things. Most of the county executives in the Hudson Valley are Republicans. Mark is sort of the dean of that group because he's been county executive longer than the rest of us had. But Mark and I served in the state assembly together. I'm a Democrat. There's one other Democrat, but again, mostly Republicans. So I called him up and I said, look, I think if you take the lead, you know the issues. You're a smart guy. You obviously ran for governor. And I will be with you on it. And so you'll have the bipartisanship you want, and we can do it. And so Mark took the leadership, and I think we benefited from it. And then each in our county, we worked through. It took a little longer than people wanted. When the governor made the announcement, they thought that meant that the game start the next day. That's not exactly what he said, but they thought he did. And so from our standpoint, it took us a solid week to work out the logistics. But the sports went underway, and just to prove it, a week ago yesterday, I went over to Rye High School. It's the town I live in. It's the school my daughter graduated from, and others in my family. And I was there with the superintendent of schools. We watched the girls play basketball, watched the guys play basketball, and it was safe and it was great.
Mm-hmm. Now, we are here in Westchester Talk Radio with County Executive George Latimer, produced by Sharc Creative. George Latimer and more than 50 Democratic state lawmakers have gotten together and asked Governor Cuomo to resign in the midst of the sexual misconduct allegations, the COVID nursing home scandal. Also, all the state Senate Republicans have asked the governor to resign as well. He seems to be defiant at the moment. Now the Assembly, which is controlled by the Democrats, has put together an impeachment investigation, which might buy the governor some time. Your position on the governor and his status with the April 1st budget deadline looming. Can he effectively legislate from the executive branch what he needs to do to be part of the budget negotiations from here on out?
Well, the first thing is that the accusations that have been made in two basic areas, the sexual harassment accusations and the nursing home, hiding the information, they're both serious and legitimate concerns. I mean, this is not, I'm a Democrat, he's a Democrat, let me sweep this under the rug. Oh, no, that's really not that big. They're both serious sets of concerns. I think what we should have learned from past behavior is that when accusations are made, they have to be properly, independently investigated, not swept under the rug. You don't get to investigate yourself. But in this particular case, Tish James, who's the state attorney general, African-American, a woman, has established a separate investigation. She's brought in two very prominent lawyers. I think one was a former U.S. attorney, and the other is a person who's very well schooled in sexual harassment law, to investigate the issues of the sexual harassment accusations. There have been 6 accusers that have come forward. What they've said is pretty bad news. I mean, there's no question. You can't whitewash that. However, in this country, you have to have the right to be considered innocent of an accusation until you're proven guilty, whatever proving means. And in the body politic, you don't have to prove in a court of law. If you don't like me, you don't vote for me, and I don't get elected. But if you hold something now and you're going to take it away from me, or you're going to tell me I have to give it up, you have to show proof of it, because otherwise you go to the world, and I don't think we want to be in this world, where any accusation is presumed to be proof. The minute you have that, then you'll have the manipulation in politics where, hey, just accuse him of this, and he'll have to resign. He may or may not be guilty of it. So I'm not talking necessarily about the governor's guilt or innocence. I'm talking about the rule of law, and I'll give you the perfect example of it. Al Franken, United States Senator, was accused of misbehavior of varying types. And over the course of just a handful of weeks, people called for his resignation, and he resigned. And there was no investigation. Now, Al Franken, aside from everything else, as a professional, was a comedian. Now, a comedian is not a marketing executive or a lawyer. And the things that he did as a comedian, I remember watching him on Saturday Night Live. He said some unbelievably crazy things. So that's not to exonerate him, but I think he got the old bum's rush. And I think there should have been an analysis. And then if the accusations made by different people had merit to them, then you say, Senator, you've got to resign your position. If you don't, we're going to impeach you. And you get the chance to resign, and then if you don't, you impeach. Mm-hmm. So got an investigation going on now for the governor. I don't expect it to take 3, 4, 5 months. I think it'll probably get done within 60 days. That investigation ought to be given the opportunity to come to fruition. Now, keep in mind, when you've had other individuals resign, you had Governor Spitzer resign, You had State Controller Hevesy resign. You had Attorney General Schneiderman resign. You had Shelley Silver and Dean Skelos as a Republican and Democratic leaders of their houses. And every one of those cases, when they resigned, they made the decision internally that the charges were significant enough that they couldn't do their job. Schneiderman resigned in like 3 hours, he announced it. Unbelievable.
Before midnight.
Yeah.
After the government.
In 3 days. And I was involved in government in each one of those cases. And, when you're watching these things happen, a person knows pretty much what they did or didn't do. Then they determine, is this the end for me in my political career? And am I prepared to accept that? And, I've been in public office a long time. I've won a lot of elections. They're difficult to win. When you win them, you feel like you've accomplished something. You think that the work you're doing is good. I don't think I'm the world's greatest county executive, but I'm trying very hard to do what I think is a decent job.
Many think you are.
Well, and we'll get to that one next. But if it reaches a point where something I've done is so heinous, then it wipes all that good out. And you have to be accountable for that. But I think at this stage of the game, let the investigation come to fruition, assuming it's going to be within 60 days. That information will be before all of us as a society. And I'm not prepared to call for any resignations until I see the proof that the accusations are accurate. I don't believe them. I just want to make sure that there's proof and that proof is enough for people to look around and say any reasonable person would agree. Or if the proof doesn't match up, the stories don't jive, then you don't railroad somebody out of office because of the passion of the moment.
Mm-hmm. A few days ago, the Albany Times-Union came out with a story saying that there's structural damage within the new Tappan Zee Bridge since day one, with defective bolts and a lot of other structural defects along the bridge. Your reaction to that report?
Same one, investigated. I drive over that bridge. I used to commute over the old Tappan Zee Bridge when it was up because I used to work at the AT&T campus in Basking Ridge, New Jersey. But that was a long time ago. Now, if I do have reason to go, I go over that bridge a fair bit, and I want to know that the bridge is structurally sound. At any point in time, we have a heck of a lot of people on that bridge, and we don't dare, operate it if it's not structurally sound. So I agree. I think in this case, the federal government should do that investigation. They can bring in, sort of top-notch people and make the assessment, are there problems? And then the next question is, if they identify problems, can they be fixed? That's the next thing. And then after you've handled that portion of it, then you can do the blame game. Did somebody know about this and allow it to happen? Was it incompetence? Was it misfeasance, malfeasance, or nonfeasance? And I'm not a lawyer, but you hear these words tossed around. And then the investigation will determine who's to blame. One of the things that's happened in politics today is that it's become blood sport. And when it's blood sport, it's like blame somebody first and then worry about everything else. And I would say this, and this is going to sound pretty partisan, but I have to be honest with you. Many of the people who are crying out for investigation, and they should investigate this wrongdoing, investigate this. Where were they the last 4 years? They said nothing about other investigations that could have been done. As a Democrat, I'm consistent. Investigate a Democrat or investigate a Republican. Don't let any of us get a free ride. If my administration has done something wrong, I might defend myself, but I'm not going to not cooperate with an investigation. But you have many people now who are speaking up, and they're angry and outraged. Where was their outrage before? It was only limited to when somebody in the other party has done something wrong. And that's what kills people's appreciation for government. They think it's all a big game, and it's just my team against your team. I think you've got to investigate any significant claim of wrongdoing, no matter which party is the source of the claim.
Mm-hmm. Warm weather is just about here, and we talked earlier about what's going to be open during the warm weather months. Will Rye Playland and other outdoor amusement facilities be open?
Yeah, we're going to make the effort this year, John, which we did not feel was appropriate last year, to open Playland. Literally, I'm looking at it as we speak right now because I live right across the street from it. And it was heartbreaking to keep it closed all last year, but we couldn't justify where the pandemic was to open it. And you can imagine, amusement park, all the rides, all the people, how are you going to manage that? It seemed impossible to us a year ago. Plus, the governor had a mandate to close them anyway. But we made the decision to close it even before the mandate was enforced on us. This year, we're going to open it up the last week of June, which is about a month and a half after it would normally open. We're going to keep it open, dead stop on Labor Day Monday. It's going to be open 4th of July Monday. We're going to take one day off more than we normally closed on Mondays throughout the year. We're going to close on Mondays and Tuesday because we're going to need a lot of manpower and a lot of work to do things there. And so we're going to operate it 5 days a week instead of 6. And we're going to work it in shifts as well. There's going to be like a daytime shift where you can go, and then a late afternoon nighttime shift, and a break in the middle, which will allow us to sanitize a lot of things. You can just imagine everybody in a bumper car, everybody in a seat of the Dragon coaster, when they touch the bar and then they get up and walk out, they could be leaving COVID behind. So we have to figure out how to solve that. We're going to open our pools and beaches again, same time frame, last week of June, as we did last year. We had a success with four pools and 2 beaches open. Our golf course is open this weekend. Now, I'm not a golfer. Guys who love to golf wanted to go out yesterday, but we closed the park right around the end of the year, kept it closed. You got to give the golf course itself a little bit of breathing space. And so we open them up this weekend, hopefully good weather. As long as the weather's good, we'll play. We're opening up 4 courses that are in the lower part of the county. The 2 northern courses got some snow that hasn't all melted off in Mohansick and Hudson Hills. But the 2 in Yonkers, Dunwoody and Sprain Lake, will open this weekend, and the 2 on the Sound Shore, Maple Moor and Saxon Woods, will open this weekend. Bicycle Sundays are going to be rolling first weekend in May. We're going to have all of our parks open for use. We're not going to restart our ethnic festivals at this point. We might do a couple before the end of the year if the pandemic lifts. And at this point, no fireworks, with a big asterisk, which is we're holding open, and we do fireworks on Labor Day weekend. We know that when you have fireworks, you do it at night, and everybody gets close together. How are you going to socially distance that? I don't know that. And and then the city of Rye, which polices the perimeter of the park, would have just as much problem as we would trying to police it. So no fireworks, no Kensico Dam ethnic festivals. Going to give a shot at Playland, yes. Beaches, pools, yes. Golf, yes. Bicycle walking paths, yes. And wish us luck.
George Latimer, you were elected county executive 2017. You are running for re-election. You were first elected to public office. You've held a variety of them across Westchester since 1987. 34 years ago, you have never lost an election. Why should the people of Westchester re-elect you, and what would your blueprint be for a second administration?
Well, the first thing that's very important to note is that during this administration, I drafted a bill which was passed by the legislature to impose a 2-term limit on county executives. So I'm running this year for my second and final term as county executive. You've had county executives like Ed McCallion and Andy O'Rourke that have won 4 times at the polls. Andy Spano, Aldo Bello have won 3 times at the polls. A gentleman named Herbert Gerlach won 3 terms. I'm not looking at that concept. My sense is if I get a second 4 years, I'm going to try to complete the things that we've started, which I think everybody can understand has been bumped off by COVID. COVID has changed the priority structure. We're in the process right now of trying to do some major capital improvements. We're getting ready to finalize a new family court in New Rochelle, fix the Memorial Field that we have been long promised and never dealt with, fix the South County Trailway over on the Elmsford to Hastings side of the county. There's capital projects like that deserve completion, and we're going to work through and get those things done. We're going to do, in the second term, a full review of the airport, a new master plan, get it adopted, whatever the final product is, adopted by the Board of Legislators, go forward. All of the things that we've talked about in reforming and changing police and training and so forth, we hope to implement them, and we're going to be balanced. We support our police. We did not defund the police in this budget, but at the same time, we believe in reforming things that are wrong and fixing them and doing it cooperatively with law enforcement. That's an agenda of the second term. I think we've got the ability to have another good budget year with a little bit of luck. We've cut taxes 2 years in a row, and the first of my 3 budgets was under the tax cap. So, people would say, oh, he's a Democrat. Oh, my God, they're going to go crazy on taxes. And we haven't. We haven't gone crazy on taxes. We cut it twice, and you haven't had cuts like that in 20 years. So I think we've shown a good, reasonable way of governing. At some point in time, we'll be fully engaged in the campaign a little bit later on in the year. But the punchline is I think we have a good record. I want to build on a good record, but I don't intend to be in the job forever. My intent is to do a decent job for the balance of my term, which is this year. If I'm given a second 4-year term by the voters, I will do my very best. And then at the end of that, I'm going to take the car keys and hand it over to somebody else. And then we'll just go on with our lives.
County Executive George Latimer, thank you for joining us on Westchester Talk Radio. Let's talk again soon. Always a pleasure.
John, thanks so much. Stay
safe.
Thank
you, George Latimer, County Executive here in Westchester. Westchester Talk Radio, WestchesterTalkRadio.com, produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities right through April of 2021. And also by Wartburg Healthcare, Rehabilitation in Mount Vernon, and Park Sterling Realty of Bronxville, along with Michael Labriola, Landscape Design and Construction. Catch all of our Westchester, Fairfield, also Lower Hudson Valley, Sharc Creative Network programming like Rockland, Dutchess, Putnam, and Orange County Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube.